Welcome once again to SoCo Chat, a podcast where we hear directly from county leaders, discuss the latest news, and talk about all things concerning our beautiful corner of California known as Sonoma County. Welcome back, everyone, to SoCo Chat on this beautiful April day. Once again, I'm your host, Paul Gullickson, Communications Manager for the County of Sonoma, and we thank you for joining us. Today, we are very honored to have with us once again the Sheriff of Sonoma County, Eddie Engram. Thank you, Sheriff, for being here.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, you're always one of our more popular guests, so thank you. We're looking forward to talking to him about all the changes that have been occurring within his office over the past year. But before we do, as usual, we want to start with our trivia question for the day. And our question is this: what year did the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office begin providing law enforcement as well as court security and detention services in this county? I'm going to give you three options. Was it 1925, 1875, or 1850? If you know, call us at 707-565-2242 or email us at publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. And if you're correct, you will receive one of our SoCo Chat coffee mugs or your choice of one of our other SoCo Chat items, as well as a Pete's Coffee gift certificate. So you can go have your own SoCo Chat coffee as you listen to us. So anyway, with that, let's get on with our discussion. Thank you once again for being here.
Good to be here.
Yeah, well, let's start by talking about your staffing issues. A year ago, the Sheriff's Office, along with a number of county departments, was in the news about your high level of staff vacancies. What are your staffing levels like now?
We are effectively fully staffed in our law enforcement and our detention divisions. So we've done really well in that aspect.
That's great. So the situation, for a while, the situation was so challenging. As I recall, you had people on 12-hour emergency shifts, which obviously can be taxing for everybody. It makes me exhausted to think about it. But you're pretty much back on regular shifts now?
Right. So our law enforcement division, we were on 12-hour emergency staffing. And our normal schedule runs 10-hour shifts on Monday through Thursday. Mm-hmm. And then we do have a 12-and-a-half-hour shift on the weekends, and that was our normal shift. So those folks on the weekends work 3 days one week and then 4 days the next week. But everyone was on 12-hour shifts. So now we have returned to that 410, 312-and-a-half is what we call that shift.
Okay.
So we were able to, with our staffing, to go back to that normal shift. In the detention division, we had people working a high of 105 hours of mandatory overtime.
Oh, my gosh.
Next month, we're projected to have 12 hours of mandatory overtime. Wow. So a real turnaround. Our operational staff in the detention division is at 104. So 104 people who are actually working. We still have a number of people in the training program, so that operational number will go higher. When we were at our peak overtime hours, we had as few as 59 people operational.
Oh, my gosh. So, from 59 to 104?
So 104. So
wow.
We've done a tremendous job in being able to get back up to staffing.
Well, what do you attribute this turnaround? What helped?
Well, there were a few different strategies that we used. A large recruiting effort, huge recruiting effort. We hired an outside company to come in and sort of revamp our recruiting efforts. I think one of the major things that we did is historically we had always relied on lateral recruiting for mm-hmm. our law enforcement division, meaning that we recruited people who are already peace officers from other agencies. We made a concerted effort to recruit newer, brand new peace officers, people who had not been in law enforcement before. That was intentional, number one, to increase diversity within the office. But what that also allowed us to do was to change the testing procedure for correctional deputies as well, so it would be the same as law enforcement officers, deputy sheriffs. So with that, if we would have 10 positions that we were hiring for deputy sheriff trainee, we would run the correctional deputy test and the deputy sheriff trainee test at the same time. Mm-hmm. So we'd have a larger pool of people testing. Mm-hmm. And when we reached our 10 number of deputy sheriff trainees, those people who passed the test, then we could turn to them. And so if 35 people passed the test, we'd pick our 10 deputy sheriff trainees. Mm-hmm. We could then go to those 25 who also passed and said, you passed the test, you didn't pass with the high enough score, but we can put you in the background process for correctional deputy right now.
Okay.
So we were basically running 2 correctional deputy tests at the same time. So people who were testing for correctional deputy were in the correctional deputy pipeline, and those who were in the deputy sheriff pipeline but didn't score high enough, we could then transfer them into the correctional deputy pipeline. So that gave us 2 pipelines for correctional deputy.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And as you mentioned, you have more trainees in the pipeline now. When do you expect them to come online?
So they are still in the training program, and they're getting off in different staggering rates. So we have a couple coming off in the next couple of weeks, and then there'll be some coming off in about a month or so. And so they're coming off, at different rates. So in the next 4 to 5 months, we will probably have another 8 off. And so we're constantly getting people off the program, and we're continuing to hire so we don't fall down, because we always have that, attrition.
You have a turnover.
We always have attrition with turnover and people retiring and people looking at other agencies. So we are continuing to move full speed ahead with our recruitment.
But I imagine, and in addition to reducing your overtime, having more of your staff, fewer vacancies, really takes the stress off of everybody. Probably helps in a number of other areas that are hard to put a number on, right?
It does. It takes the stress off of individuals. We see a decrease in sick calls, a decrease in injuries. Morale has boosted. We see that around the office. There's also some wellness factors, some wellness programs that we've introduced. So we've seen a huge boost in our morale, and the employees are happy.
Well, that's great. That's certainly good news. We're in a much better place than a year ago. So.
Absolutely.
And you've also been able to restore your narcotics unit this past year. Tell us, how did that come about?
So, because of our staffing issues, particularly in the detention division, we actually had to get into a contract with Solano County to send some of our incarcerated persons to Solano County to alleviate some of the pressure of our employees within the jail, who are working a staggering amount of overtime hours. As we were able to staff up, the board was gracious enough to give us the money for that contract. But our staffing filled up at such a rate that we were able to end that contract early, and the board had given us money for the fiscal year. And so with those funds, the board gave us the ability to use them if we ended the contract early to start a pilot program with our narcotics unit, which we haven't had since 2017. So after we ended that contract, we then transitioned those funds for the Solano contract into the narcotics unit, and we were able to start that unit again with the board's assistance in November of last year. So that unit consists of 4 detectives and 1 sergeant, and it's been hugely successful, and it was certainly sorely needed.
Yeah, well, exactly with this time with fentanyl so prevalent. So do you have? How have they been doing? Do you have any numbers to indicate what they've been doing?
I do, and granted, this has been since November, so 5 months. They've had 78 arrests. They've seized 62 firearms, 68.5 pounds of methamphetamine, 4.5 pounds of cocaine, 101,000 illicit pills, including fentanyl-laced pills, and 13.5 pounds of fentanyl. Oh. So that's in 5 months with 4 detectives. They've also participated in a large number of seizures working with the Department of Justice and also Santa Rosa Police Department. So they have been a unit that has been extremely busy, and they continue to be so. So hopefully the funding for that unit will continue. It's funded until June of 2026. So hopefully the funding will continue for that unit.
Yeah, well, it's hard to imagine something more important right now in our community.
Yeah, fentanyl is definitely an epidemic and a challenge here.
Yeah, we saw that with the death of the students recently that thought they were taking something else and end up being fentanyl. One other big change this year is that you're now providing law enforcement for the county regional parks. How is that going?
It's really been a great partnership with the folks at regional parks. It's been a success so far. I think the most glaring evidence of that is the Joe Verdota Trail and how that looks. We've had some really good cases and taking care of things inside the parks. As the partnership moves forward, we are building stronger relationships with park staff, and so it's been a really good success, I think. And Director Whitaker thinks as well. I've just met with him a couple of weeks ago, talking about what next year looks like. And regional parks, just took into the park system another large parcel, another park. So
Yeah.
it
More
is
work.
more work, but I think it's something, another area for the people of Sonoma County to enjoy.
Yeah.
Actually, people beyond Sonoma County to enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you and I were talking off air, and I mentioned to you that I recently went on a long run along Joe Rodota Trail from the railroad tracks all the way out to Sebastopol, and I was amazed how how clear it was. There weren't any encampments all along there, and your team is doing a great job. Is it mainly? I think you used to talk about how it's mainly on call if you're aware of it, but I know that they have. You have deputies out there walking it at times too.
Right. So we have a dedicated parks unit, which
Mm-hmm.
consists of 4 deputies and a sergeant, and those deputies in the parks unit are responsible for the entire park system.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've said before, when you contract with the sheriff's office, you don't just get those individuals within the contract, you get the entire sheriff's office. So even when those 4 parks deputies are somewhere else within the county, within another park, and not necessarily at Joe Rodota Trail, the deputies who patrol that area in and around Santa Rosa
Mm-hmm.
are available to respond to the Joe Rodota Trail or patrol that area
Right.
to supplement the part of the contract that includes the Joe Rodota Trail, and that's inclusive of Windsor, our contract with the town of Windsor, or Sonoma. So the town of Windsor contracts for law enforcement services, but the town of Windsor also gets the deputies in and around Windsor
Yeah.
if there's a need for it.
Yeah. You get them. You get all of
You
you.
get all of it.
Yeah. Well, you've also had some visible changes this year, mainly the change in uniforms. You've also had a redesign in your black and white patrol vehicles. What was that all about?
So, since I've taken office, it was really important for me to change the culture of the office and change the perception of the office. And over the past 10 or so years, there were some negative things that were brought upon the office. Some were perception and some were reality. And a lot of the things that have changed over the past 10 years or so, people couldn't really see those things.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that I've done within the office and, my time in office, people really couldn't see those things.
Mm-hmm.
Change in our policy, change in our canine policy. The average person really doesn't see those
Right.
things. So the philosophy of our management team, when we meet once a year. We actually have our meeting coming up in May. Was this fiscal year, we do it on a fiscal year basis, was let's focus on change that people can see.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like that. That's your motto,
yeah,
right?
that's our motto for this year was
Mm-hmm.
change that you can see. And that's our uniforms, that's our patrol cars. And it lined up quite nicely with our 175th anniversary.
There you go.
So that's really what this is about, is not only the change that people can't see, policies, technology, things of that nature, but change you can see, such as our uniforms and our patrol cars.
Well, we're giving away the answer to our trivia question here, but
If
it
they
is
do the math.
you can do the math. But it's really remarkable to think in 175 years of service. I mean, it really goes back to the very origins of the county of Sonoma itself.
Yes.
That the sheriff's office has been a part of this,
The state of California, in
and the
fact.
state of California too. Yeah, you go back a long way. Change you can see. Do you have any other plans for this year? This 175th anniversary year for you?
At this point, for the change you can see, that's sort of where we are.
Where
But
you-
as I said, we have our executive management workshop coming up in May, and we'll see what
See what else
the next
is there.
fiscal year brings about.
Well, I know the other thing that you've been very proactive about is connecting more with the public and doing more webinars, more town halls. Is that part of that as well? Connecting more with the public?
That's not part of change you can see. That was one of my campaign promises.
One of your commitments,
It was
yeah.
one of my commitments to the people of Sonoma County when I ran for office was community engagement, and the office and myself being the head of the office and being more engaged. I believe last year we did over 200 community events, either attending or putting them on ourselves. And of those events, I attended over 50 of them personally, whether they be Rotary clubs or different events. So we do different events throughout the year. We have quarterly. We do our town halls in different parts of the county where people can come out and ask us questions. Our most recent one was in Windsor. Our next one next month is going to be in Roseland at in Moreland at Andy's Unity Park. That one's going to be on a Saturday, I believe May 3rd. I believe that's
Okay.
Saturday.
Okay.
During the daytime. So we really want to get out and meet the people of Sonoma County and hear what your concerns are and tell you about the job that we do. I think it's important to hear what people's concerns are, and a lot of times people tell us what we're doing right. It's always not about.
It's not always the
It's always
negative.
about not always about what we're doing wrong.
Right.
It's a lot of times people have positive things to say about the job that we're doing.
Yeah.
The town hall or whatever meet and greet that we're doing in Roseland actually came about because we were invited there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we would have been invited there, 5-10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So we are getting a lot more invitations from the public than we have before.
Yeah.
We also have I started a newsletter that goes out on a monthly basis.
See that.
It's in both English and Spanish. Combined, we have about 110,000 subscribers.
That's great.
Probably every third month there's a video component to it, but the format is it tells people what's coming up, and it sort of gives a look back of what's happened over the past month. And there's always a little bit of a recruiting aspect to it as well.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, we like to borrow from that and share it with the public for our own newsletter, and we will continue to push out information about when these meet and greets are happening. But you can go on the website, I imagine, the Sheriff's Office website.
Sheriff's Office website on the right-hand side. There's a link to click and subscribe.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I know one of the things that you're one of the more controversies, if you will, sensitive areas that people want to talk about, and I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to engage with you about. I wonder if you wouldn't mind summarizing for our audience what the Sheriff's Office practice and policy is concerning working with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, ICE, because I know there's a lot of concern out there. There's also some misinformation, and I just wondered if you just take a few minutes and explain that.
Well, I think I want to start off by saying since I've been in office, I've limited the amount that the Sheriff's Office does communicate, and I say communicate, not work with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. When I took office, there were some communications from the Sheriff's Office to Immigration and Customs Enforcement that we did that we no longer do.
Okay.
California has Senate Bill 54 that outlines how law enforcement agencies, and this particularly affects sheriff's offices because we're talking about typically people who are in custody.
Yeah, this is known as the California Values Act.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in there, it lists the crimes at which, if someone is in custody, you can notify ICE. If ICE contacts the sheriff's office, we can tell them if that person is in custody and give limited information.
Right.
And it lists the crimes within there, and
most of them are violent.
They're defined as serious and violent, but some of them it is subjective. I would say some people may say they're serious and violent, some people may not.
Okay.
So when I took office, there's a category of crime that were called misdemeanor wobblers, meaning a crime that could be charged as a misdemeanor or a felony. Or convicted as a misdemeanor or felony. So the misdemeanor wobblers I took out, and I believe the beginning of 2024, I believe I took those out.
The wobblers?
The wobblers, the misdemeanor wobblers.
Okay.
The felony wobblers were a little bit more difficult to read through because those crimes are a little bit more challenging to go through. So it took us a little bit of time to go through those and see which ones we were okay with leaving in and which ones we were okay with taking out. So we took out a number of those. So some felony wobblers we will give information on, and some we won't. If ICE called, we will give information on those. Some we won't. An example of a felony wobbler that we will would be assault with a deadly weapon. And then there's another category that was in there would be probable cause felonies. So if a person is solely arrested of say a robbery, that's a probable cause felony. So not convicted, arrested. Under Senate Bill 54, we could notify ICE that they were in our custody.
Mm-hmm.
I removed the probable cause section. So now it's solely on conviction.
On
So
conviction.
a person has to be convicted of that crime in order for us to provide information to
Okay.
ICE. So we are more restrictive than Senate Bill 54.
Mm-hmm.
So Senate Bill 54 is the kind of the ceiling floor.
Mm-hmm.
Get how that goes.
Yeah,
but
you go above that.
But we are more restrictive than that.
Okay.
And the way that I approach this is what's best for public safety.
Mm-hmm.
But we do not participate in immigration raids. We don't back up ICE if they're doing immigration raids.
Right.
We don't honor ICE detainers.
Mm-hmm.
We only honor judicial warrants. So it has to be a warrant issued by a judge for a criminal immigration violation, not a civil detainer. It has to be an actual crime on a warrant issued by a judge.
Yeah. Well, that's an important distinction. So, I mean, make it clear that, you're not, reporting people who are under suspicion of misdemeanors or jaywalking or something like that.
Right.
I mean, these are cases where there are convictions involved, as you say, of serious crimes, and that you only respond to ICE requests only when you're required to by law.
Correct. And I think the biggest change is not necessarily the misdemeanor robblers, but the biggest change is the probable cause, and that someone actually has to be convicted,
right?
As opposed to the probable cause. I think that's the bigger one. Is that
okay?
You actually have to be convicted of a crime, as
not
opposed
just
to being
suspected or about
suspected.
to. Yeah,
because people are arrested every day,
right?
And they either they're innocent until proven guilty, right?
Yeah. Well, that's an important distinction, and I really appreciate you taking time to clarify that. So, is there anything else? You've had a lot going on. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners today about what's happening at the sheriff's office?
I think things at the sheriff's office are going great, and we look forward to the future. I'll plug the newsletter again.
Good.
Check out our website and subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah, it's a great source of information, and the website, as is the website. And if you want to engage in one of the meet and greets, you can do that in person too. And I encourage you to take advantage of that. So, Sheriff Engram, we can't thank you enough for taking time to visit with us today. We always look forward to these updates from you. So, thank you. We hope you'll come back again soon.
I will. Thank you.
Okay. And to our listeners, we'd like to give you we want to thank you for joining us, and we want to give you a chance to win one of our SoCo Chat mugs, as well as a gift certificate to Pete's Coffee. All you need to do is give us a correct answer to our trivia question. And our question today is what year did the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office begin providing law enforcement, court security, and detention services in this county? Was it 1925, 1875, or 1850? If you were listening to our discussion, we gave away the answer. Call us at 565-2242 or email us at publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org, and you'll be the first to call, and you'll get those prizes. Also, if you have comments about this or any other segment, or have a suggestion for a topic for a future SoCo Chat episode, please email us at that same address, publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. We thank you all and hope you continue to follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and YouTube. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Sheriff.